Hello there. It is Wednesday, December 16th, 2015. New comic book day, as most Wednesdays are. Gonna be two really long parts this week. This part will be Marvel and one other book, and then the next part will be DC and, well, Vertigo, which is kind of DC. Anyway, starting off with this video with Battle World issue number 5, The End to the Ultimate Universe, or Ultimate End. Whatever. Anyway, I did that whole title wrong. So we start with a splash page of Miles Morales interrupting the fight between the 616 heroes and the 1610 heroes. Punisher watching on in the corner here. And then we get a whole bunch of other splash pages where Miles explains basically the whole backstory behind Secret Wars for like the bazillionth time. I mean, not in this series, but like since Secret Wars began. And we get some pretty splash pages here, but like it's all just exposition of things we already knew. And then after all that exposition, we get some more splash pages of all the characters reacting to this news, and then eventually, like, just we don't even see them decide. We see them decide to fight Doom. We got one more splash page, and then a series of just these pages over and over as we hear these heroes' last thoughts to their loved ones and family before going to fight Doom. And that is all this book is. We don't see them fight Doom. We don't really see the end result of the fight. Of course, they're saving that for the main Secret Wars book. But the Ultimate Universe ends with a whimper. It ends with a bunch of characters deciding to go fight, and then we don't see them fight. And we just assume that a bunch of them didn't make it. And, like, yeah, Miles kind of got to save the day, but we see him incite the saving of the day. We don't actually see that in this book. So it's kind of disappointing. No, it's super disappointing. And there are some great splash pages that I showed you, but splash pages aren't story. I don't read a comic book for splash pages, you know? I mean, they're nice, and a good splash page is a great piece of art. It's something I really enjoy looking at, and splash pages can, like, tell a story. If you look at, like, The Death of Superman, that book just progressively gets more and more splash pagey, but it also is the fight. Like, that's as much crap as Death of Superman gets. I think it is a really good example of just visual storytelling, which this is not. This is just exposition we've already heard before over some pretty images and no plot. So yeah, that is the Ultimate End, number 5, the epilogue. This actually does kind of read like an epilogue, like where they are all now epilogue, except for how they all disappeared, this sort of thing. Except we don't actually see how they disappeared, we just see them decide to maybe get disappeared. Anyway, not a good book. Feels like a waste of just an issue. But, I mean, I guess you get some nice kind of side of the truck splash pages if you're into that sort of thing. And the art's not bad, it just doesn't feel like it's going towards anything. Next up, we have Miss Marvel, issue number 2. Again, I didn't actually review the second issue of Miss Marvel, but anyway, Miss Marvel, issue number 2. And we begin with Miss Marvel, Kamala, breaking into the offices of the Hope Yard's gentrification project. That's basically what it is. And she finds this purple goop in their home base, probably not good, before getting attacked by high-tech security drones, just like in the last issue. So we're going more and deeper into what these evil gentrifiers are up to, and of course, because gentrification is evil and everything in a comic book is magnified, the realty company is actually turning the gentrifiers into literal zombies, which isn't too far of a comparison in actuality. And as someone who like gentrification is kind of like a pet issue of mine, it's not a pet peeve. It's not like, I mean, I'm not like a politician or anything. It's like marching against gentrification. It's, I mean, I guess it is kind of that sort of issue, but like, anyway, I don't like it. It's something that is like that personally offends me. As someone who grows up in a city that is very heavily kind of the blueprint of how to gentrify, at least in the modern age. So yeah, I mean, I just like, that's just a quick way for me to like the book, is make your villains gentrifiers. And so that's where this is going, with Kamala learning more and more about Hope Yards and the people behind it. What else is happening? Oh, one development I really like in this book is at the end of the last volume of Miss Marvel, Kamala finds out that that her mom knows that she has been Miss Marvel the entire time, which is really fun because now her mom gets to be Alfred. Like, her mom still cares about her, still wants her to be really safe, but also knows that she's a superhero, knows that, you know, that is her responsibility and something that she feels like she has to do, and fully supports her in that. And just keeps on saying, like, be safe, be careful, be a hero, you know, do good things. But also, you know, has her own opinions of, you know, this is her daughter. This is her daughter fighting crime, putting herself in harm's way. So she gets to be a really interesting character in that, you know, she supports Kamala's superheroing without wanting Kamala to put herself in danger. So, yeah, like, pretty much an Alfred character, which is really interesting because Kamala is still a teenager. Like, she still needs a parent. She's not... I mean, Bruce Wayne still needs Alfred, but, you know, she doesn't... Like, if her parents were gone, Kamala would be, you know, lost. I mean, she does have her older brother, who also began dating, which leaves Kamala the only kind of character in her book without a romantic interest or partner so far. And this is actually a pretty cool scene where we finally meet, well, not finally, because we're introduced to her in this issue, but where we meet Amir's new girlfriend, who makes a Dune reference as basically the first line in the book, which wins Kamala over. But yeah, and then we meet the zombie gentrifiers and all that. So yeah, I'm liking this book. It's just more of the same Miss Marvel that I liked in the last run. Pretty much continuing exactly where we left off, again with Mom and all that. We get a fight on top of some trucks later on in the book, which is pretty cool. This panel over here is really great. Kind of a Batman pose, or maybe a Spider-Man pose for Kamala. She's leaning on top of a billboard with her own face on it. But yeah, I'm just kind of in love with the main gentrification is evil plotline. It's gonna take a lot for me to not at least like this book because of what it's doing there. And of course it is as well written as Miss Marvel has been the past year or so. So yeah, not a lot not to like. A lot to love with Miss Marvel. Still as charming as ever. Still overusing the word embiggen. Next up, another female Marvel hero, Silk, issue number 2. And this issue kind of loses me a bit. Mostly because of the art, which is really distracting. Cindy and Silk and all the other characters just look weird. They look like they've been their limbs have been pulled and stretched out in weird directions. Kind of not waxy, but I guess clay-like. With let me find it looks almost like stop motion, like sort of studio-like Coraline, but without the movement, like stunted, and just something's off about it. Like if it were in motion, it might look better because it would look a little creepier. Maybe I'm not sure what exactly it is about the art in this book, but it's really just driving me off. Which is why, and I kind of hope that they use a different artist going forward. Like the artist they used in issue 1 and in previous Silk issues. I thought that was great stuff. But coming off of issue 1, we have Silk, who's leading a triple life as a double agent for S.H.I.E.L.D., spying on Black Cat. also trying to figure out what's going on with the Goblin Nation, and of course working her day job as a journalist for JJJ, J. Jonah Jameson, and all that. And she is frazzled, and everything is just compounded when she finds out that somebody knows her secret identity, knows that Cindy Moon is Silk, and requests a meeting with her. Silk goes into the sewers, where she finds a Goblin Nation nest, where they are kidnapping children and turning them into goblins. Gets ambushed by the kids when she meets this weird guy, this weird smoky guy, who is probably the person who sent her the note in the first place. Then he just kind of disappears as soon as he arrives. She's then late to a heist with Black Cat, and we just see her getting in over her head. Not enough hours in the day for superheroing and Cindy Mooning. And so this book is just her, again, in over her head, tackling way too many issues at once, and not getting any sleep whatsoever. And that's about it. Again, I don't know if I was unable to engage in this issue because of the art, but it just didn't feel like much was going on. And a lot was going on. There's a lot of different plot points in this book. We have her go from a heist with Black Cat to work to investigating the Goblin Nest to another heist with Black Cat and then back to the office. So we get a lot of different scene changes and all that, and stuff is going on. Plot's moving forward. We're finding out more about some things and learning new questions to ask. Again, that new Smokey character is introduced. This guy who has a pretty cool costume. But yeah, I don't know. I just couldn't really connect with this book that much. Even though it's ostensibly telling the same story. I guess it goes to show how important art is to a comic book, where it's just not the same without the art to really, tell most of the story for you. And I guess that's part of it. I think if we just saw how frazzled she was, the book didn't have to, wouldn't have to keep on saying, "Oh my God, she's so frazzled" all the time. But yeah, just not much got to me this issue, which is a shame because, again, this is a book I want to like, and I have liked in the past. Maybe I'm feeling frazzled reading this book, just as Cindy Moon is, actually being a part of it. Maybe that's part of the book's charm, is that it makes you feel as worn out as the main character. I don't know. Anyway, that is Silk, issue number 2. Next up, we have a third female hero in the Marvel Universe. How about that? With the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, issue number 3. Issue number 3, yeah, I was correct. And love the cover here with Nancy and an old Squirrel Girl looking at Squirrel Girl edited into classic Marvel covers. So we have the marriage of Peter and Mary Jane. What's this one? I'm guessing Fantastic Four when they met. Oh no, that's a Sentry. That's not Galactus. Amazing Fantasy number 15, of course. First introduction to Spider-Man. Cover of the Incredible Hulk, I think. Yeah, so that's a pretty cool cover right there. And we continue where we left off last issue with Nancy running into Doctor Doom. And then, of course, things get complicated when Doctor Doom's involved, so he gets hounded by all these other heroes, starting with Jubilee. And what I love is we're introduced by Jubilee as she tells a joke from Ryan North's Twitter account. Like years and years ago, Ryan North made all these silly superhero tweets, and this is before he started working for Marvel. But now they're canon, because you have Jubilee saying them in a book that is published by Marvel, and then the little under joke here, the alternate text joke there, is also kind of stolen from a tweet that Ryan North did years ago. And so Jubilee takes a selfie with Doom, because that's the sort of book this is, where you have the greatest Marvel villain in all Marvel books, I think. I mean, that's why he's the main antagonist of Secret Wars, probably. I think Doctor Doom is. Is that controversial to say Doctor Doom is the top Marvel villain? Or, I know some people might say Galactus or Thanos, but I think it's Doctor Doom. Anyway, yeah, that's the sort of book that Squirrel Girl is, where Doctor Doom and Jubilee take a selfie. Nancy, of course, is recruiting Dr. Doom, or needs to find a way to convince Dr. Doom to teleport her into the past so she can rescue Doreen from the 60s. We find out why Dr. Doom is here, and it turns out he's not present-day Dr. Doom. He's Dr. Doom from right after he got defeated by Squirrel Girl for the first time. So he went into the future to get advanced technology to bring back into the past to stop Squirrel Girl. Doreen, of course, plays to Dr. Doom's infinite ego in order to get him to do what she wants, which involves going back into the past to meet Doreen, who already has an alternate Squirrel Girl costume that's kind of familiar. Some throwbacks to her original costume. And so we get Squirrel Girl versus Dr. Doom, Part 2, which does not go as well for Squirrel Girl as Part 1 did. And now the rest of the story is, now that we have Doom trapped in a past before any of the superheroes arrived, because it's the 60s and due to Marvel's sliding timeline, I think like the only superhero in the 60s is Captain America, but he's frozen at that point. So, yeah, in a world without superheroes, Dr. Doom gets to take over and alter the timeline and all that. And so now it's up to Squirrel Girl and Nancy to stop that from happening before it happens. Pretty weird stuff. But pretty great stuff. I mean, Squirrel Girl is still one of the top Marvel books, still full of just all sorts of great humor in every issue. And man, it's hard to kind of describe comedy without telling the jokes verbatim. But of course, we get jokes playing on Dr. Doom's giant ego. We get jokes about how petty he is. We get some visual gags, as usual. We get a lot of 60s humor because it's a 60s throwback. A lot of the humor, of course, is in the kind of alternate text on the bottom of every page, where Ryan North likes to sneak in a couple more jokes every page. So, yeah, we get Dr. Doom just getting selfies with everyone. Oh, we have this great sequence earlier on with the Punisher, where the Punisher notices Dr. Doom isn't around, and Nancy convinces him that he's a cosplayer. So the Punisher's like, oh, never mind then, and just speeds off. And the Punisher's a great character. I mean, he's not really a great character, but he's a character I like seeing, especially when I like seeing him being played around with, because he is kind of one note and super grim serious. So it's great to see him in a comedy book being funny. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, it's pretty hard to describe humor without just telling you the jokes outright. Unless, like, I can try describing like the type of jokes, which I did, but past that, I don't know, I'm kind of lost. But yeah, still funny a book as Marvel has, and can't wait to find out where it goes now that we have Squirrel Girl and Doom back in the picture together. Next up, we have, oh man, so many books. The Amazing Spider-Man, issue 1.1. Not written by Dan Slott, written by Molina, Jose Molina, not Alfred Molina. Written by Jose Molina, art by Simone Bianchi. And again, not a huge fan of the art in this book. Everyone looks kind of covered in a plastic sheen. A lot of the models, like just kind of character proportions, look weird. Which, I mean, I kind of get for Spider-Man, but Spider-Man doesn't look weird spindly. He looks weird kind of blocky. Like, I think I like McFarlane's Spider-Man art as much as the next guy, and I like how he kind of contorts himself and all that. And looks kind of inhuman. But here he looks inhuman in just an entirely stiff way. Like he's a posable action figure or something. And then just a lot of the other characters. So here's Peter Parker running down in a hallway, and he just looks weird. He looks almost like a Beatles Yellow Submarine, one of those guys from Pepperland, I think, or whatever, and the general guy with the big legs and tiny torso, comparatively. But the story here is that Spider-Man is, well, it's Christmas time. People are rising from the dead, and Spider-Man investigates how and why are these people coming up from the dead. which leads him to a witch doctor in Harlem. Let me get to that point, which is near the end. But yeah, so eventually discovers it might have something to do with this witch doctor in Harlem, and that's kind of where we end the book. Between A and B, or A and C rather, because I'm discussing what's between, Spider-Man has a run-in with the children of the deceased, which is a pretty cool band name, Children of the Deceased. But yeah, so Spider-Man runs into the children of the deceased and swings them away from all the paparazzi and all that, who's looking to investigate the whole zombie issue. Has a good talk with one of the children, eats a dessert, takes a selfie, as Spider-Man does, you know, friendly neighborhood, and all that. And that's about it. Just not a lot of stuff going on quite yet. Again, not a big fan of the art. Maybe something will happen, but it seems like a pretty open-shut sort of thing, this issue. Zombies, Christmas, voodoo doctors, Spider-Man. Sounds more interesting when you just list it off as bullet points and it kind of comes across in the issue, which is unfortunate. But I love Spider-Man. I'll probably keep on reading, give it another issue before, you know, dropping it, or maybe I'll like the next issue so much I decide to keep on reading it. So that is 1.1. Not a great first impression for the story. And what else? Man, last Marvel book this video, one I was excited to pick up, another #1, written by one of my favorite writers of cartoons, not comic books. Starbrand and Nightmask, written by Greg Weisman. If you don't know who Greg Weisman is, if you're around my age, he made some of your favorite cartoons as a child. He is the genius behind Gargoyles and more recently Young Justice on Cartoon Network, both of which sadly got kind of canceled before their time. One kind of joke around Greg Weisman is that he keeps on planning 5-season shows and gets only 2. Gets 2 seasons. So hopefully, and he's a great world builder. If you've watched Gargoyles, if you watched Young Justice, if you watched any of his other shows, Greg Weisman is an incredibly talented world builder and storyteller. He does great with cartoons. He's great at writing both for children and for adults. So really excited to see him back in comics, I think, because I'm pretty sure he did comics before starting on cartoons, but either way, great to see him writing a book where maybe he'll be able to tell a full story that he's planned out for 5 years from now and hopefully get that full run that he is looking for. And with some pretty interesting characters. I'm not entirely familiar with these two, but this book gives a pretty good introduction. We have Starbrand and Nightmask. 2 teenagers, young adults. It's kind of unclear exactly how old they are. Starbrand was in a college before his powers caused it to explode. Nightmask seems to be his caretaker, who's 3 Earth years old, but a lot wiser and older than that in, like, magic-y years, I suppose. And these are 2 beings with incredibly powerful people. Starbrand and Nightmask are they say they've saved the multiverse dozens of times, which, judging from their power set, I believe. Just in this issue alone, Nightmask can use the Superflow, which is an extra-dimensional dreamscape, in order to shortcut between any 2 points in space. So that seems pretty powerful, instantaneous teleportation between any 2 points anywhere in space. They both have flight. Starbrand has powers of transmutation that he shows up against Icicle here as he transmutes his ice into rocks. When Starbrand's powers activated, they blew up an entire school, so pretty volatile, powerful guy right there. And we take these 2 immensely powerful young adults and put them in a college. In Empire State University, to be specific, which of course means that we get a visit from a few other college-age Marvel characters one of which I reviewed or talked about in a previous book, but I don't want to spoil because their inclusion might start something pretty cool. And so that's kind of where we're at. Again, mainly a first issue. We're introduced to a couple more supervillains at the end of the book that these guys are going against. Graviton and Nitro, who are pretty big deals, I suppose. But yeah, the main thrust of this book is two beings with nigh infinite power going to college. Both going to college primarily to meet new people and get more and more accustomed to Earth culture since they've been away for so long protecting the multiverse. Starbrand is feeling a little alien to the whole humanity thing. Nightmask has never really been human. So each of them pretty much going to school to learn about humans and culture and all that other great stuff you learn about in college. When they're both ambushed by villains. Again, I'm a big fan of Greg Weisman. I've really never heard of these characters before, but they seem interesting. I'm a sucker for college things. I really enjoyed my time in college, so it'll be fun to see another, I guess, duo of superheroes take on that challenge. And yeah, again, a lot of this is just writing on my fanboyism of Greg Weisman. Not a terrible first issue, nothing to write home about, nothing incredibly great that was like, oh man, I want to keep reading this. But, I mean, this is a guy who plans, again, 5 years in advance when he might only have 2. So I'm in this for the long run if hopefully they give Weisman, you know, the long run that he tends to want from his things. And that is Starbrand and Nightmask. And the last issue this week, not a Marvel, but I only have 2 non-Marvel, non-DC books, and it was a waste to give them their own video this week. The Wicked and the Divine, issue number 17, the final issue of this arc, you know, the one that'll be compounded in the trade paperback form. And we get the backstory of the only one of the Pantheon we haven't gotten the backstory to, Sakhmet. Or we don't really get her backstory, but we get a further exploration of her character, because we haven't really seen much of Sakhmet one way or the other. Sakhmet, of course, being the Egyptian god of death, war, and sex. Yeah, I don't get to show some of these pages. But she's very cat-like, both, I guess, in appearance and personality. She's just someone who wants to sleep in all day, has bouts of kind of energy, that kind of come and go, kind of nihilistic in a way. She doesn't really care about things one way or the other. And what's a good panel to really show these sorts of things? Yes, here it is. And knocks things off of shelves, or roofs in this case, but just, you know, knock it off. Doesn't care for it. She's not that interesting of a character, actually, because she doesn't care about anything. She's nihilistic and hedonistic at the same time. She just wants sex, she wants to kill people, and she wants to be left alone sometimes. But yeah, there's not much there to really get invested in. Kind of like with Silk, the art style is... I mean, I prefer this art style to Silk's, but it feels a little incomplete. Again, this feels like an art style where things should be pulsing, things should be moving around. Like, I would much rather see this book animated than I like seeing it as still images. The art just kind of has that bouncy quality to it, I feel, where things should be kind of jiggling or pulsing around, you know, characters should be moving and kind of wavy. Especially when you have, again, like, you know, a cat, like a creature that is kind of known for, like, these graceful, smooth movements. It's weird to just see still images of that. But, and otherwise, like, I like the coloring of this art, too. It's kind of toned down. And you still have kind of, like, you know, yellows and blues and all that, but they're muted. They're not undersaturated, like, it doesn't feel like they're foggy at all, but they're muted. They're kind of pastel. Again, the sort of thing I think that would work better in motion, with, like, contrast actually being moved around and these characters moving through the space than it does kind of just still. yeah, that's kind of what we get. We don't get much of a plot here. We follow this character around for a day. She doesn't do much because she's a cat, and cats don't do much. That's pretty much it. Not the best issue of The Wicked and the Divine. I mean, this whole kind of arc has been on and off, depending on the gods we're following, and how experimental they're willing to get with the book. Again, really like the art, but just not much to do with this character, I feel. Especially if she's not interacting with more interesting gods and goddesses. And that is it for part 1 of this week's reviews. If you're interested in the DC books and Vertigo books I picked up this week, that'll be in part 2, of course. So if you feel like it, please stay tuned and watch that one. If not, thank you for watching this one. If you like this video, please rate it, subscribe. Any comments, questions, book recommendations, anything whatsoever, leave them in the comments box, and I will try and get to them. And yeah, thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you do join me for some more comic book reviews.